After we finish the blending those three clips, before we go into the camera, here I want to talk a little bit about character effects. So basically we're just going to use Maya dynamic joints to automatically animate this tail animation. So the tail will follow the body and do a little natural swing as the body, as the character runs forward. We can use the dynamic joint for either the tail or for the hair. So in this case, we're going to demonstrate it on the tail. So let's just go to the left view for now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to extract the tail bone structure from the original rigging system. We don't want to destroy the original rigging system. We're just going to duplicate the bone structure so we can do whatever we want to do, the procedural dynamic joints, without destroying the old rigging system. So the first thing, let's open up the outliner and duplicate the whole tail bone structure. Just Control D and duplicate it, and we press Shift and P to take it out of this whole group. So it becomes an independent, clean tailbone structure. And we're just gonna do our animation on this new clean tailbone, and we will constrain the controller back to the movement of these bones. We're gonna need the bonus tool come in with Maya. I think it's a extra package you can download from the official website. And we go to the joint dynamics. Here we can use this little module to simulate basically hair and cloth, also some like extra secondary jiggle animation. And this whole system is using the Maya nucleus and N-cloth system. So we can actually set up some collision if we want using the N-system passive collider. In theory, if we set up this dynamic bone to these joints, all this joint structure will be affected by the gravity, but we don't want the root to be procedurally animated. We want the root to follow the pelvis. So we're just going to group all the joints into one group. Let's call it tail dynamics. And then we're going to do a parent constraint of this whole group to our pelvis. Remember, we need to select the group, and then we're going to parent the group to the pelvis controller. We're just going to use a parent constraint and maintain offset. So right now, our whole group will follow our pelvis animation, and whatever underneath will be affected by this dynamic system. When we set up the dynamic joint system, it is very important that we click the joint in the right order. So almost it's like when we do the parent constraint, we need to select the parent and the child. So when we set up the dynamic joint, the first joint you need to select is the root joint. So, and the next one, we only need to select the tip joint. So first select the root, and then we select the end, which is the tip, and then we're gonna use the hair system to drive this whole dynamic joint. And the once we click apply, it will ask you if we want to switch the playback to every frame. This is required for simulation, so we don't jump frames. So you see, now it will create a whole dynamic system as well as the nucleus. And this whole new system now is using a hair curve simulation to drive this whole joint, animation. And if we click the tip, we can actually go into those parameters to tweak how much gravity we want and the smoothness of joint. If we play it right now, it goes too fast because I think on my computer, the play every frame actually goes faster than real time, so I can actually toggle back to 24 frames per second. It depends on what kind of machine you use. So if you play every frame slower than 24 frames, you have to set it to play every frame. Okay, you see now the tail is actually moving along with the hip and has its own little like gravity animation. Let's see in the perspective view a little bit better. You can see right now the tail is going crazy, like getting those dragged everywhere. Now we can use the world parameters. Basically, we can tweak the simulation parameters. We can increase the air density so it gets a little more drag as it moves through the air. Let's increase to 3, see what happened. And if we go to the joint, we have more options. If we select I think select this locator. Yes, so we can see we can set the hair stiffness, hair gravity, and damping, and it's just play around with these parameters to see what values works better in your case, and it depends on how much movement you get from the root joint. And right now I'm playing from the first frame, and if you start from the 1001, you need to set the nucleus, set the start frame at 1001 as well. So you see we get a better result. The tail is not going crazy anymore. It has this little natural floating animation. So we probably need a bit pre-roll just to make the hair settle down a little bit. Now here I'm making a mistake because all the animation I start from the frame 1. Now if I need a little pre-roll, I have to go into the negative frames. I should have started everything at frame 1001, so if we need a pre-roll, we can go to like 990. So this pre-roll is just to make the tail settle down a little bit before the character start moving. So okay, now we get a better result from the tail. So this is like just the easier way for us to animate those secondary either tail or hair or ear if we have a long ear animation. But right now, all the simulated animation exists in the joint, that like the clean duplicated joint we just created. But next step, we're gonna transfer those animation back to the controllers so the geometry, the geomesh actually moves with this new joints we created, because the original joints that those mesh skin to are not affected by this dynamic system, because we didn't want to break the whole rigging and expression internal connection. So now we just simply need to use a orientation constraint or use a parent constraint rotation only to constrain those tail controllers back to this moving tail joints we just duplicated. We only need the rotation for now. So by doing that, if we simulate right now, you see our newly created dynamic joint system is driving our tail controllers to give the mesh and proper animation. And I didn't do the demonstration here. Actually, you can set up a collider with the body so the tail doesn't go through the body. Set up the collider is very simple, just to go to nCloth and set up a passive collider, and that's it. Okay, next step, let's just bake out the simulation so we have a proper animation for export. And if we need to tweak any keys after, we can do that so once we bake out the keys. Okay, so that's pretty much this small section to use the dynamic joint to create some character effects. So in this case, I only did the tail, but this same method applies to hair. If we have mesh hair, low poly hair, and also anything that needs some secondary swing or getting dragged by the body itself, we can use the same method to those scenarios.
Purchase genuine tutorial. Enjoy the question answering from course tutor in the long term. Join the exclusive Facebook group and learn from each other. Also, you can sign up with Yihu.com. Search for the course ID. Obtain the full learning courseware, project files. Follow us on Facebook. Get closer to become a master in CG field.